The psychological traps are easy to fall into since they occur unconsciously, and most people do not even know of their existence. Today, I will tell you about 22 psychological traps you've never heard of before. Before we delve into the topic, I am Wintejmotive. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, please click the subscribe button and the bell icon. Without wasting time, let's get into our topic. The IKEA effect. IKEA effect is when you value something more because you put effort into creating it. Like furniture, you assemble yourself. To avoid overvaluing your work, get external feedback. This helps you see the real value of your efforts and make objective decisions. The spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is when you think people notice your appearance, mistakes, or behavior more than they actually do. To avoid this, remind yourself that others are usually too focused on themselves to notice minor things about you. This reduces anxiety and helps you focus on what you are doing. The halo effect. The halo effect is when your impression of someone in one area influences your opinion of them in other areas, like thinking someone is trustworthy because they dress well or they are good looking. To avoid this, judge each situation or decision on its own facts. The framing effect. The framing effect is when your decisions are influenced by how information is presented. For instance, imagine a doctor says, "There's a 90% chance you will survive." But now, imagine the doctor says, "There is a 10% chance you'll die." Both statements mean the same thing, but you would feel terrible in the second case. Always consider facts from multiple perspectives before making a decision. The self-serving bias. The self-serving bias is when you credit yourself for successes, but blame external factors for failures. Like thinking your win was all skill, but your loss was just bad luck. To avoid this, practice taking responsibility for your actions, both good and bad. The Deterro effect. The Deterro effect is when acquiring a new possession leads to a spiral of additional purchases, such as buying a new outfit and then feeling the need to upgrade other items to match. To avoid this, be mindful of how one purchase can influence your overall spending. The anchoring effect. The anchoring effect is when your first impression or an initial number shapes your subsequent thinking. For example, thinking a $50 shirt is cheap because you saw a similar one for $200 first. Always view offers and decisions independently, not just in comparison to the first option you see. Negativity bias. Negativity bias is when you pay more attention to negative events than positive ones. For example, I would read 1,000 comments under my videos, and 999 of them would be positive and only one negative. Guess which comment I end up remembering and thinking about? Yep, you're right. That one comment from some random guy who probably has nothing going on in his life and spends his whole day in his underwear, sitting in his messy room arguing with people on the internet. Now that I say this, I realize how ridiculous it sounds, but most of us are programmed to focus on the negative. To counter this, we consciously need to shift our perspective to positive events and be grateful. The sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is when you keep doing something just because you've already invested a lot in it, not because it's the best choice right now. This is like continuing to eat a terrible meal just because you paid for it. To beat this, think about what's the best action starting from today. Your investment or business decisions need to be based on potential future returns rather than past costs. Reciprocity. Reciprocity is when you feel obliged to give back when someone gives you something, like feeling you must buy from a store because you got a free sample. To avoid such influence, recognize when you're acting out of obligation rather than genuine desire. The Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is when a higher expectation from yourself leads to an increase in performance. For example, if you aim to achieve your one-year goal in 3 months, your performance will significantly increase. Consistency principle. The consistency principle is based on the desire to be consistent with what we have previously said or done. For instance, if you tell your friends that you plan to start exercising regularly, you're more likely to stick to it. That's why finding someone to hold you accountable can significantly enhance your commitment to your goals. The planning fallacy. The planning fallacy is when you underestimate how long it will take to do something, like thinking you can clean your whole house in an hour. To avoid this, always add some extra time. This helps you plan your day better and reduce stress. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when people only notice things that support what they already believe. For example, if you think your favorite soccer team is the best, you might only notice the games they win. To avoid this, actively look for information that challenges your views. This helps you make decisions based on all the facts, not just what you want to believe. The Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is when people with less skill or knowledge overestimate their ability. This is like reading a few famous books on investing and believing that you now know it all. To avoid this, especially when making important decisions, consult with experts. Loss aversion. Loss aversion is when the fear of losing something motivates you more than the potential gain. Like not investing in a good opportunity because you're scared to lose money. To beat this, focus on what you could gain, not just what you could lose. The decoy effect. The decoy effect is when your preference between two options changes when a third, less attractive option is introduced. Like choosing a medium popcorn because it seems cheaper compared to the large one. To avoid this, evaluate each option alone. This helps you to choose what you really want, not just what seems like a better deal in comparison. The reactance bias. The reactance bias is when you want to do the opposite of what you're told because you feel your freedom is being threatened, like not wanting to wear a seatbelt just because a sign says you must. To avoid this, focus on why the action is beneficial for you, not because you're being told to do it. Action bias. Action bias is when you feel pressured to act, even when doing nothing is a better choice, like feeling you must do something in a slow business period when waiting might be wiser. To avoid this, consider the benefits of patience and not acting. Sometimes, the best action is no action. Survivorship bias. Survivorship bias is when you only notice the big successes and forget about the struggles and failures. It's like thinking that having your own business means wearing suits and sitting in fancy offices just because that's what you see in the media. You don't see the sleepless nights, arguments with their partners, tough decisions, and risks they took to get there. Before jumping into a new business, research both sides to get a real view. The unity principle. The unity principle is when you're more persuaded by people who you feel are part of your group. Like trusting a product more if the person selling it comes from your hometown. To avoid it, make your decisions based on the information, not just on who is presenting it. The bystander effect. The bystander effect is when you're less likely to help someone in need when others are present. For example, not speaking up in a meeting because you think someone else will. Avoid sending an email or a request to a group of people and saying, "Hi, can someone please help me?" Everyone will probably ignore it, thinking somebody else will help. Address your request to a specific person instead. If you are a victim of any of these traps, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Keep smiling, my friend. Until next time, take care and goodbye.